Welcome back to Adventures in DevOps. I've never heard anyone say, we need fewer tests. And that's why we've grabbed almost 20-year veteran in building reliable software, executive consultant, and is currently the CEO and founder at Itacama, where they're guiding businesses to success or forcing them when necessary to adopt the best practices that the industry has already known about for decades. Pia Wiedermayer, welcome to the show.
Hi, Warren. Thanks for having me.
I think we just have to get this out of the way first. I see almost two modes in every company I've ever interviewed or interacted with. That's the no quality whatsoever because it's no one's responsibility, or no quality whatsoever because there's a single person, team, or organization with quality in their name, effectively isolating from the whole system, having quality built into it. How does this even happen?
Oh my God. If I would know how that happens, oh dear, I think I'll be a billionaire already. Um, Honestly, I feel there is so much history behind that. Well, I used to work for quite a long time in so-called quality roles. So I had the quality or the testing thing in my job title, and only just recently got into a company, but I can tell you a bit more on that later, where there was like this, okay, no quality, we don't need it, but there is no like person or department responsible for that. I feel like for me, it's a lot about, okay, how we used to work in a waterfall way, when like, right, so this one after the other, and it seemed to be clear that, okay, my as a business analyst, for example, my responsibility is to write all the requirements pixel perfect 100%, and then I'll hand it over to developers, and then they take care of it and they do the developing, writing, coding stuff. And then when they are done, and that used to be defined by, okay, the code is there, but testing is not part of my job. I've experienced that a lot. Not so much anymore these days. That's good. But then, it got handed over to this, there is the quality person, department, team, whoever, and they will magically, build that quality in or test it in, and I never understood how that should happen, how this should work. It just seemed stupid to me from the very beginning.
Do you think that it's heavily related to the fact that people are trying to well identify what their core responsibilities are in their job or in the organization that they're in? And for them, that means identifying like my job starts here at this point and ends over here. And for the parts that they feel like they understand and have the capability to actually do, they put that within scope. And for everything that they feel not comfortable doing, they try to just find someone else to be responsible for that. And it may not even be, totally conscious. It may just be like, okay, I can do this. I was hired as this because my title is, as you said, business analyst or software engineer. And if you're the analyst and you say, well, okay, that there's software engineers or developers at my company, I don't do the code. I just do this part. And then someone else magically takes over responsibility for that. I can imagine the same thing happening elsewhere. I don't remember going through my own academic career and being taught how to make tests or make reliable software. Like that was never a core aspect to what we were building. So I can totally understand where if you get to the professional arena and you get into a job which says you are a software engineer, you still don't think you need to do testing. And especially not if you had an organization present in your company that says, we are responsible for, QA.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very human, right? So it helps us to have this clear definitions or guardrails, like this is your job from here to there. It gives us security. And as human beings, we like that kind of, but also we like to have freedom. So I think it's all in the mix, but I feel it helps people to have this, I don't know, job role definition, and then whatever is written in there helps you to orient yourself in the organization, in the company. It gives you a feeling of belonging to this or that group. Of course, there are always different types of people and characters, and people that are more open or curious to learn and to, look over the fence and see what the other roles are doing, what their job is. And then there are other people that don't feel like that, or they feel good where they are, and they like to work, like stay in their garden and be the masters there. And I think both is okay. But what I don't like is just, giving away responsibility for or ownership for a product that we are all together working on, right? Because like if you work on a software product, I don't care if you're like a Scrum team or an Agile whatever team, or if you're organized in silos or more traditional ways or any kind of way. I don't care. It's like you build that one product together. So it's you all have to take the ownership for that product and so for its quality.
No, I
I
totally,
yeah.
I absolutely agree. I think one of the challenges there is on the flip side of the other extreme is you have these giant meetings with 150 people in them where everyone's responsible for getting the product out. And then those meetings are also not effective in some regard because I don't know how you can ever do something useful in a meeting with 150 people in it where it's not like a broadcast meeting or a meeting where you're going over maybe the current status of the company or something. Like it's not the level where everyone can participate. So how do you find the sweet spot here between having the individual teams or team members completely isolated and only working on the parts that they think they should be working on, and having too many people present in the meeting? Like, how do you know who should actually be there?
So first, I would always start small, right? Because I totally agree. Like there is no point of like having like this many people in one room, and I would start with people who are interested in okay, how do we make sure that our product is the right product and does what it should and makes the users happy in the end. I like the word built-in quality, and I don't care about any framework. Just to say that right in the beginning. But for me, really, it's all about building quality into the product from the very beginning until production and maintenance and all that stuff. When I used to work in like separate testing teams, I always try to find some way to connect to the developers, whether this is at the coffee machine and just having a chat and asking them, okay, what feature are you working on today? And then most of the people are super open to just tell you because it's their baby, right? They built it, they are proud of it, and then you just you have already your conversation started. And I was always curious to see how that works, like all in the background. I mean, I have a very basic knowledge about well, like one semester at university or so in coding. Nobody wants me to code, but I'm actually able to follow. When somebody shows me something, I can follow. And yeah, and I'm always curious about how they build up things and how all the things connect together with all the interfaces and all that stuff. And from my experience, just show interest in the people you work with and just ask them, hey, what are you doing? Can you show me? And then you're there right next to them at your desk. And then, for example, you could ask, or I asked them, okay, cool. So how do you make sure that this won't crash when we, connect it with all the other parts of the application or with the surrounding systems? And then they go, oh yeah, well, good point. Well, I have my unit tests, but actually I did not think too much about integration tests yet. Then like, what about this and that? Have you thought about, or maybe why haven't you thought about connecting this or that system? And then you have, I never got like stopped in a way that like people didn't tell me like, why are you asking me those things? You will see the feature when it gets shipped to your QA environment, and then you can take a look, right? So
I'm surprised you never ran into, I mean, because you mentioned that engineers may, or it's not necessarily an engineer, but anyone who's built a product or a project themselves and consider it their baby, to go up to them and ask them questions. I feel like there is this historical challenge of, professionally even, to not crush the fragile developer ego that comes with owning a thing, and to come up to them and suggest that maybe part of it is broken or isn't working right. You must have run into issues like that.
oh yes, yeah, I did. But for me, like the big difference, or what made the big difference for me, was when I actually proactively approached them in a very positive way, showing them respect for their work. Because I think I had a hard job. right? I mean, I didn't like to, always be the one at the end of the process having to tell other people who put a lot of effort into their work to tell them this is not good. This is not working, or this is shitty, or whatever. Of course, they didn't like to hear that. Nobody likes to hear that. Yeah, for me, I very soon in my career found out that I want to do it differently, to find a different approach that works for myself, and to connect to the human and not only talk about like the technical product. And that makes a big difference for me. And also for the people I worked with. Of course, not everybody was open to my suggestions, no matter which way I tried. But that's okay. But most of them, when I really, I came out of my testing room, I crossed the hallway, I went to the other office, and there I was. And everyone like, the first time, like, there is the tester, right? she found the bug, or more than one, right? And then I was like, hey, how are you doing? What are you working on? And they're like, yeah, but yeah, most of them opened up and they just thought, okay, she's a human too. Okay, she's interested in what we're doing. And then also I got it back. I really believe in what you send out comes back to you. And when you send out like, positivity and respect to other people, then this comes back.
And so I feel like it's natural then that you graduated from working with just software engineers, and I feel like testing is such a dirty word sometimes, validating, what was actually being built and that it was being built correctly, not necessarily just from a technical side to consulting for companies and running your own to do executive consulting or helping companies, organizations transition from building software in their current modes to something more reliable or sustainable in that way. And I feel like from what I saw on your profiles, they're usually about changing organizational structures. And something that you actually mentioned earlier was that you see less of a challenge now with testing than you had seen historically. And I don't know if you were alluding to something specific that's happened recently for that transition, or something else.
Well, let's see if it goes into the other direction again now with our AI helpers. But yeah, so recently, what I mean, I've met more and more people, not only developers, like basically like everybody you have working on a software product. All the different roles, whatever they are called. I feel like that more and more people are interested in, the other disciplines and learning a bit more here and there, just to be more effective, productive as a team, and to also be able to support each other better.
I was gonna say, I want your career experiences because you seem like such the optimist. Like everything's been great. People are working and want to collaborate together. And here I am thinking like, is my experience unique? Am I the one, or maybe I'm the problem where I've seen, I remember some of my early jobs, like if I met someone in QA, they were on some sort of social media for 90% of the time until right after code freeze, where they would review stuff. And then you'd get the most ridiculous questions ever, like, why doesn't this work according to our testing documents? And I'm like, I don't know what is in your testing documents. Maybe your testing documents are wrong. And so it's great to see this other perspective that even if organizations aren't set up optimally, that there have been companies and engineering orgs that have been able to figure out their way through it and still evaluate and build software correctly.
Yeah, but I mean, not everything is perfect, also in my experience. So I have been working with those teams and those organizations where I felt like I am the problem. Like it's like, okay, they don't get it. I have no idea what else to do. And there were points in my career where I decided to leave a project because they didn't get it. I was like, really, I was the unicorn, and they gave me the feeling that I'm totally crazy, and what I ask or what I want to do is just bullshit. So I said, okay, guys, then if you want to tell me how quality assurance or building quality works, I'm the wrong person, because I want to make sure that we all together like align and make sure we build a cool and high quality product. Of course, there are those those folks, and it's okay. Yeah, but I just hate it when, okay, now you got me. So I had once a job. I didn't stay for long, where and I put it in the how do you call it in
Quotes.
English?
Yeah.
In the in quotes, yeah. So a so-called enterprise architect. I don't know what this guy was doing, but definitely not architecture in any sense. And and that guy, I was quite new in that team, and it was as a financial institution here in Zurich, and I've been hired as a test manager, and I took it over from a junior colleague, and I should, organize, plan all the test management. I've been doing this for quite some time before I went there, and then this this whatever architect came into our office and didn't even look at me and only at my colleague and telling, like, basically talking over my head, but talking to me at the same time and telling us how to, yeah, listen, girls, this is how you should plan the testing, and this is how blah blah blah, and this is how my developers built it because I painted it in PowerPoint. And I stood up and walked in front of my colleagues so that that guy actually had to look at me, which he still didn't do. When somebody just basically looks through you. And I went there and I said, and I, offered my hand and said, "Hi, we don't know each other. I'm Pia and I'm the test manager for this project. So thanks for all your insights. I see you have a lot of experience here in this company. I appreciate, and yeah, I'll think about it." And he continued with his behavior like he started. And then I thought, okay, come on, seriously. And then I basically mimicked what he was doing, right? So I also said, okay, yeah, whatever, yeah. And then just didn't look at him anymore. And and then he went off. And my colleague was like, "Ah, you cannot talk to him like this." And I'm like, "Well, what the hell does he think who he is, talking to us like that?" And by the way, I mean, is he the test manager or? Yeah, but he's always like, he always provides a good insights on the architecture and blah blah blah. And I thought, girl, you have a lot to learn. Yeah, that was weird. That was super weird, and there was only one example in that company where I really felt, okay, I'm with stupid. It's just it's I can't. It's
I mean, honestly, I'm so amazed because I don't think I would have ever had the wherewithal to stand up and shift the conversation like that, especially earlier on in my career. That's that, and to I know how those those bank enterprise architects in Switzerland are. So that's even another level on top of that.
yeah, but there are really great ones. I have to say they are out there, and there was and that's and I know that. And when I met this guy, I was so shocked, and I thought, no, no, no job title in anything close to software development should be with this guy. Yeah.
So that was earlier on, and did that have an impact on how you decide like which clients to actually pick up now for your company?
Yes and no. Well, I think the financial industry is an interesting one.
It's like no
Um,
one ever.
Sorry. I don't know. It just happened that I always ended up from project to project, either in a bank but in different kinds of, smaller ones like regional, then more the ones focusing on private banking and here and there in insurance. I don't know. So, but right now I'm super happy, or I really enjoy working with smaller companies, with startups that are in the scaling phase. And then is the point in time where they need to, build up some structures, a bit more organization. So this is where I'm very good at, and I also feel like it helps my clients the most. So it's a win-win for everybody.
I mean, these are the companies that they finally found product market fit for some part of the spectrum, and they now have enough money to start fixing the things in their organization that have gone so totally wrong. And so, what I want to ask is, like, is there a most common pattern that you see in these scale ups that, especially in Switzerland, that keep falling into, or is everyone sort of like a special snowflake and have their own special flavor of problems that you have to come in and like adapt to?
Yeah, there are patterns, and it's not only with the smaller companies. Basically, the same also in the very big organizations. I feel like too much transformation or change at the same time is not good, because the people you have humans in your team, right? Whether it's a small team or it's a big organization, you should not forget to take them with you. And it's what I see both in startups and in big organizations, is that management, whoever that is, they spend a lot of time and thinking about, okay, where do we want to go, and how do we want to organize our teams and our product roadmap, blah, blah, blah. And then they want to do it all at once, all at the same time, because now they have already spent so much time in thinking about it, maybe not, sometimes not even so much time. And now they even give it to the AI, so they have the result in like 5 minutes. That's perfect. So it should also be adapted like in, I don't know, 5 days, and then the whole organization works perfectly, which
Yeah, I was gonna say you're being generous to say that they thought through it, and I guess one retort would be that they're thinking through it now more than ever with access to LLMs. Before there was no thinking, before trying to roll out changes, and now they have the benefit of whatever thinking the LLM provides.
hmm yeah, coming back to C-level or yeah, management in general, thought it through. I feel you always had those folks where they really put a lot of thought into whatever they want to change. And then you have the other extreme, people that are just simply want to, we try it now, right? Who said that? Was it Zuckerberg? Just like move fast and break things. I feel like you have a lot of those extreme people. And for me, I'm missing the mix. I like to plan a lot, and then it's hard for me to make the actual step to try it out in production, right? So I've been dreaming of having my own business basically for 30 years, and it took me incredibly long to finally do it. That's one extreme. And then there are colleagues of mine who just let the AI wing something and then just deploy it to production. And yeah, we'll test in production. We'll see how it goes. And I get super nervous when hearing that. And I feel like we should be honest with ourselves, no matter on which extreme we are, and just to see that, okay, it's much better in most of the cases when we try to work together with the other extreme. And I think a lot of us know that person, and then just get their opinion. And then you would have a nice mix, which I think is which gives you a good point where you can say, okay, now it's safe enough to try, right? You cannot, it's also what I had to learn. You cannot plan everything, although I would love to.
Do you have any secret tools to help convince the startup, small or scale ups to actually make the transitions that you think would be beneficial for them?
No.
I use my divining rod and I throw the sticks on the ground and they point in the appropriate direction, and then all of the founders listen to me.
Yeah, but yeah, thanks for the idea. I love it. I should try that out. Yeah.
I think the one that definitely works is it has to be their idea.
Yes, absolutely. What helps me is I also have an education in systemical coaching, but that's only one part, right? I was always interested in, how are people, like, how do you work together with different characters, people from different regions, from different cultures, not having all the same native language. And that helps me a lot in my work, but also in my private life, of course. And this is what I try to also tell my clients. The goal is that it makes click in their head, and then they see things they haven't seen before. And then what you just said, it's their idea.
One of the things that I've seen come up a lot is that it's challenging to find real world research actually done with even a modicum or a small amount of scientific rigor when it comes to anything related to AI productivity. And I think many people are standing on one of the extremes, right? Like they, without any, even a single piece of data. One of the extremes is like, oh, everything is better. And on the other side, it's the worst thing ever. We'll never use that. But I feel like you must have been able to come by at least some data points from these organizations that I can only imagine, are trying to transition to a different mode of operation with pulling in LLMs into some part of the workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we currently at one of my clients, which is it's an international startup. It's not a startup anymore. It's a bit bigger now. So they are having currently around something between 50 and 60 employees. 3 months ago, they decided to, it's how did they call it? Like they said, okay, full steam AI development. So all the not all the engineers, but like a bigger part of the engineering team was put on the side to run an experiment. That's how they called it. Basically, this is how we work now. But I will start at the beginning. So it started out as an experiment. First thing was it started already with forgetting to involve the QA into this experiment team.
Off to a great start.
Yeah. Also, the product owner was also not super included in there.
I love this.
So surprised.
I love this already. You know what? We're going to do this right. We're not going to do this wrong. We see all these companies who are just introducing AI and forcing everyone to do it. We're going to do it differently. We're going to run an experiment, and we're going to make sure we record metrics and that it'll be super successful, and then we can decide whether to roll this out to the whole organization. Our experiment, we don't need testing or product managers involved.
Yeah. No, we only start with the coding part, right? So you can forget about the rest. No, I'm kidding. It was like there we had like those two extremes, right? So the one part of the company which wanted to do exactly what you just said, right? So really scientifically kind of like experiment, plan it, have everybody involved who should be. And then there was other parts of the company saying, no, we need to move fast because otherwise our competitors, they will be faster and then we're screwed and, everything will go down in flames. Yeah. And then very quickly, the more organizational folks, more structured folks, they went quiet because it started that I was super shocked that this happened so fast. And we had those two sides, basically, like the ones that are, we need to do it with AI and AI is so super and we'll be so much faster and so much better, blah, blah, blah. And then the others that are, but what about? And then the AI folks, they were like, you are against AI, so you're kind of against us. This is how we felt. And I was super shocked because I really like every single person in that team. But I was like, what is going on here? Are we crazy? Don't we see what's just happening with our team? Because it's like just, pulling us more and more away, and we've worked so hard to get closer to each other because we are already separated, around the world and in different cultures and all that stuff. And now just because of this AI hype, it's really sad. I would love to tell more positive stuff. But I feel like when we can say, so the positive thing is, I feel now being in the third month of this not so experimental experiment right now, people started to realize what happened, right? Because yes, of course, we delivered a lot of code, but not all of it is what we've expected. So whether it's the structure of the code is not what a senior developer would, how you would build stuff, right? A lot of duplication or like simply spaghetti code, right? I mean, it works on the surface, but yeah, if you look behind it, then so that's one thing. Then the other thing is like, it's super important that you know what you want, right? So this not including the product owner from the very beginning and not like really trying to solve all the open questions there were, just simply assuming that, the AI will figure it out and it will work. Surprise, surprise, it did not. And what we wanted to deliver in 4 weeks, we didn't deliver in 8 weeks because there were so much gaps to fill and open questions to discuss. And the AI couldn't help with that. So the product owner had a lot of meetings, had to explain stuff over and over again. Yeah. And then also the QA, right? I mean, she's also forced to put more effort into automation, also using AI to help her automate tests. But also she found out, so yeah, it's nice. It delivered good looking API tests, but it just simply, like, the AI produced tests that simply trusted the wrong API responses. So they were worth nothing. So it was important that she reviews the output of the AI. So it's a process for the people to, sometimes I feel people need to feel the pain themselves. And then it's like when you tell your children not to put their hands on the, on
The
the plate.
stove, yeah.
Yeah, on the stove, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. It's hot. You're going to burn your hand. And they do it. And then hopefully they learn in the end. And you are there ready to, right, with the ice.
Do you think that going back, the company would be able to construct an experiment more, like, I hate to say correctly. Yeah, let me try that again. Do you think that if the company would go back and repeat
Mhm.
creating an experiment to see whether or not LLMs would be an effective use, do you think that that would be a successful experiment this time? Not necessarily that it would turn out that it would be better, but they would be able to derive some learning from it rather than it being a complete mess.
I do hope so, but I'm not sure. But it's not, it's just because I know the mix of the people and
Yeah.
how who they, right? I think like I think it would be better
Mm.
when they do it the same, because now also some super enthusiastic folks learned that, okay, not everything is gold just because it looks like, yeah.
So do you think that a large part of it is the tools that we have available? Like, it's not whether or not we can introduce LLMs and see if there's an improvement. It's that the tools themselves make it a struggle to actually even have an experiment. Or do you think it's an organizational problem? The people performing the experiment don't have good attention to what their internal processes already are, understand what they're actually changing by switching to LLMs. Is it a human focused problem?
I feel it's it's more, I think it's a mix, but for me it's more on the human side.
Oh, interesting.
Because when looking back in my career, when I used to work in the testing area, there was the same thing happening with automation, and all the testers were like, so, oh my God, now I need to learn how to code because otherwise I won't have a job anymore, blah, blah, blah. And everybody went crazy, like chickens without heads running around. And also there, it wasn't the tool that caused the problem, or for me, it was never the tool. So now it's also not whether AI tool or any other tool. It's we as humans, we cannot outsource something to a tool, especially not when it says it's intelligent. That's my feeling, right? So I think we need to do our homework ourselves. Yes, whether we like it or not. And
But that's good though, because I mean, it sounds optimistic, because if you say that it's not the tool set or chain or companies that are providing products for us that make it difficult for us to experiment, it may be just our lack of expectations or knowledge in a particular area that are holding us back to effective experimentation with scientific rigor. That means that we can learn and improve. We're in full control of that as an organization, and you can rely on third parties to come in and potentially help an organization actually run effective experiments. I think that that's, for me, a little bit of a positive side here. What I do want to ask is that not everyone's in a leadership position that can help influence directly how the experiments are set up or how the tools are integrated in the organization. So given that you have a unique position where you're often integrating with the leaders of these technical organizations, what can engineers, more technical people, ICs that are on the ground do to convince, say, their leadership that their current decisions or their processes that they're trying to put in place actually have, say, a negative impact on the business?
I personally, and I know it might not be everyone's thing to do, but I would always think, why did they hire me in the first place? So really focus on that and not let yourself get crazy just because of this. Ooh, there is this AI thing now, and this will take away my job. Because I see that a lot now across all the roles. And also sometimes I feel it myself. I'm wondering, okay, is this what I'm doing? Actually, can an AI replace me? Should I focus on something else? But then I go back to, and I would recommend it to everyone, independent of where you are in the hierarchy. Really just, if it's too much, take a step back, close the laptop, and remind yourself of everything you bring with you, like all the experience you have, or if it's only your gut feeling, it doesn't matter, right? So everything you bring as a human, and they hired you for a reason. And then raise your voice, whether this can be, it doesn't have to be like loud in front of a big round. It can be, I don't know, maybe your organization has like some anonymous, I don't know, mailbox where you can put feedback in, anything. But I would really like to encourage people, just say how you feel about it, but at the same time stay open for all the, all the technology innovation that's coming our way. Because I don't think we are at the end right now. I don't think AI will go away. So I feel we need to adapt, and we need to find our way, every single one of us, to deal with it. Just remember why we are here in this job, and why they hired us, and what makes us special. And then
I,
they should listen. Hopefully they listen to what we have to say.
yeah,
I would
I think.
recommend it to management that they listen to their people.
uh, I feel like you reminded me of two things. One, it's the just the real challenge of being in any position, feeling like with you're an imposter in that position. Imposter syndrome is the aspect,
Yeah.
and that you're not capable of, or you shouldn't. You're afraid that you'll lose your job if you do say something, that you don't even have the expertise to be able to stand up and maybe offer critical feedback. But the other thing you reminded me about, which is linked to that, is even before LLMs completely ruined a lot of organizations, there was this methodology that I really had in my mind, that the most effective or long-term members of organizations are the ones who stand up and say something and offer feedback, because chances are they were hired, as you said, for a particular reason that was identified. Like if you made it through the hiring round where you were in a stack of thousands of resumes in a pile, and then after that got through the interview round and actually got hired and have been there for even a couple of months, then, as you said, there's something was recognized. But if you keep your mouth shut, you are completely no different than everyone else in the organization. There's nothing that stands you out. So if something were to happen, you are not unique. You offer no extra value. Whereas if you are someone who stands up and complains loud enough but not too loud, then you are at least recognizable as someone that may be offering value in some way. And I do understand that may be also what gets you fired at the end of the day, because there are definitely those engineers. I've been that one in the past that open their mouth too wide. There is this unique aspect where you are providing a lot of value in doing this that not anyone else is potentially doing. And if LLMs do replace all software engineering and testing and product development lifecycle, et cetera, and support feedback, et cetera, then the only thing left that you can offer value is by your own opinions. So it's even better to refine the mechanism in which you communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing to add here.
So one thing I do want to get your perspective on, especially coming historically from I hate to say QA, I feel like it's just such a demeaning label that's added just from historically in organizational structures. People who end up taking up those titles are heavily underevaluated for the experience and abilities that they really have. So that being said, I do like the label more of a tester. And when I think about testing, which is obviously different than being a tester, A lot of people are now standing up and saying, oh, yeah, software development, that was never our bottleneck. Well, I guess if I take a step back, LLMs are helping us write so much code. Software development was always our bottleneck. Now that's eliminated. And then we get lots of articles online saying software development was our bottleneck and that's completely over. And now we can move on to other things. And then we get articles retorting those articles saying, no, software development was never our bottleneck. Now we have to focus on the business and doing other things. The bottleneck is really pull requests. And I'm just like, LOL, like pull requests are not sure, they're a bottleneck, but they're not the real bottleneck. And I feel like we'll very quickly have companies standing up saying, oh, yeah, we automate pull request reviews. And then we'll get articles saying pull request reviews were always our bottleneck and now they're resolved. And then there's going to be the response article saying pull requests were never our bottleneck. It was fill in the blank. What's the trajectory here?
I've seen now. Now I'm with one client, helping them out in the product team. So I'm actually now the bottleneck with defining requirements that that makes sense, right? So scope out a feature like traditional business analysis requirements engineering work. And I tried to do it with AI and I was not happy at all. So yeah, so currently me and my other colleague in that role, we are kind of a bottleneck, but that's okay for us because we showed the AI fans why we are not giving everything to the AI. So what comes out, right? Because when we start already at the beginning to give undefined work in there, it only gets worse and worse. And at the end, like our poor tester, she will have no idea what to automate or what let her AI agent automate because it's just, it's basically in German, we have this game when children play. It's called Stille Post. That's a silent mail when all the children stand in a line and the first one starts to say something very silent into the ear of the other one, and then they just take the whole message to the end, and at the end it comes out something completely different. And this is what I feel like happens when we scream like this, now you are the bottleneck, you need to be faster, just throw it into the AI, and then like, oh yeah, okay, now the AI does it for me. I'm not the bottleneck anymore. Super. But then someone else is, and then in the end, we end up with something not useful, not wanted.
You know what? I think it's a much better name than the English version of the game, which is just called Telephone.
Just telephone?
I know, isn't it lame?
Yeah. Sorry.
So it's a telephone game, having lots of middle people in between where you're passing off messages, and at the end of the day, you get something completely different. I mean, usually more than a couple of words, so you get some enjoyment out of what ends up with what you started with versus at the end. It's interesting to bring LLMs into that mix, though, and already start to see that it's compounding the confusion or complexity of the messages that get passed around the organization, and to see it in the light of still the problem of throwing the work over the wall to someone else. I mean, if you're evaluating people's success or their careers, or even assign them the label or the title to do a particular thing, and they can offload all of that work to an LLM or 90% of it, then they're just encouraged to have it go through this sort of extra mutation or transformation layer that doesn't understand the original intent, that has there's no reasoning or thinking process behind it, and then taking that and passing it off. If you look at it from that perspective, it seems obvious that it can't end well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I really do hope that we'll learn that, like all of us as a society will learn that sooner than later. There are days where I'm more worried, and there are other days where I'm more positive.
Well, then that's a good point, I think, for us to switch over to picks. So, Pia, what have you brought for us today?
I brought one of my favorite books. It's The Culture Map by Weidermayer, and it's all about how you deal with. It's focused on the business area, but how you work internationally. With people from different cultures, countries, backgrounds, and it's super, super interesting. Shed a lot of light on assumptions I had about different areas or countries around the world. It was really eye-opening. Yeah, I love it how she describes the differences between cultures, and she, everything is described by at least one concrete example from her own experience. So I really love that. So it's not super scientific written. It's just something you can easy read. Yeah, it's really cool. And it helped me a lot to work with my international clients now. Yeah.
Was there any like one particular insight that you liked above all the other ones?
That it's all about perspective. So, for example, people outside of Germany, Austria, Switzerland, they always feel like, okay, those German speaking countries, all the people there, they are always super on time, for example. And now, like, as I'm Austrian, but I live in Switzerland for more than 13 years now. And I know the Swiss version of being on time, and I know the Austrian version. And that's a completely different thing, like totally different. And it drives me crazy working with Austrians, because I so adapted the Swiss timing, and there, like, it's huge. So it's always about perspective.
Yeah, the being on time thing is and obviously if you extend that to other cultures around the world, it's I
Mhm.
think in the book Erin uses the term whether or not time is fixed or flexible.
Yes.
And you can definitely see some cultures are way more flexible on when they like if you say I always found this really interesting. In German there isn't a great way to say like we'll meet at a particular time, but with the assumption that it's a flexible time. It's if you say you're gonna meet at 12 o'clock, like you are meeting at 12 o'clock. Like
Yeah.
there is no other time. But in other cultures, that's definitely like, well, 12 could be 1:30 or something. Like,
Yeah.
stuff can happen at that point. Yeah, I like that one. The one that actually got me in the book that I really liked was that a better understanding of this concept of like high context versus low context, where in especially like Eastern Asian cultures, when you say something, there's like a lot of different implied meanings with whatever that statement is that you're saying. And so if I say, like your hair looks nice today, that may mean so many different things on so many
Hmm.
levels. Like, does that mean that like yesterday and the day before your hair was terrible, and today you finally decided to fix it? And there's like a lot of different levels to that. Whereas, and I feel like a lot in Western cultures, things are very like to the point. They're low context. If you say
Hmm.
something, don't try to interpret it more than what's there. There really was no extra thought put behind it. And I feel like that was a huge learning for me, especially around how different languages or cultures are constructed and whether or not you should read into something that someone is saying. Talking to someone from Asia, feel free to read into it. And so, like, now I have to be extra careful when I say things, how it may be taken by different people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me of, yeah, one more thing. I was surprised. I didn't expect that. Like when you, for example, as European or myself, when I give feedback in a round, that's normal for me, right? And also with the clients like from Austria, that's totally fine, no matter which level in the hierarchy they are. But it's completely weird when we have colleagues from the US in the call. So they would never do that, because it's like together we stand, divided we fall. This this way of thinking in the US culture, I wasn't aware of, because I experienced Americans from the US always is very like straightforward, like to the point, saying what they want to say. But yeah, now I understand more why in certain situations they don't speak up. Although I know they also don't agree with something, but they would not like say something against the boss in front of all the others.
I think the most common known scenario of professional workplace engagement for Americans is the feedback sandwich, where you say
Yeah.
something very nice and then you give the actual feedback and then you say, no, it's actually okay. It's not that bad. And you're supposed to understand that it was a really negative feedback. Things aren't going very well, but,
Uh-huh.
and pull that important piece out. I've always hated that. But on the other side, I get it. So There's also this huge aspect of if you engage with people from other cultures who work in international companies, they tend to have been more exposed to other cultures and so may
Mm,
have picked up on some of those things more than those that if you're working, like you're consulting or contracting for a foreign company where that company only has employees from that local country, have only ever worked locally, then they definitely embody a lot of those. And I don't want to call them stereotypes, but they're in a particular part of each of those spectrums in the book. So
mhm.
I love the pick, Pia. The culture map is great. I still bring it up as a recommendation for people. It's, even if you don't work across cultures, just even in a single company, when you're working with colleagues, they could have their own values that differ from yours and how you understand things. And it may not be because maybe they have heritage from a different place or who they've engaged with or just personally. And I found there's a lot of insight in that book that I think is very good.
Awesome. Happy you liked it. So what did you
Yeah.
bring? Did you bring something? You
Oh
have
yeah, no,
to.
I have to have a pick every single week, and so that's a lot of picks. My pick is, well, first is a question. This one's rhetorical. Am I a little less human than the rest of us? And well, I've definitely been accused of being so before. But there's a really great episode it's called "The Rest Is Science." It's a YouTube series where they talk about if logic is built into human tendency or not. Is it something that we learn or something that we have and we express? And the actual episode is called the reasoning test psychologists still can't explain, and they talk a little bit of what's called the Watson selection task, and what it does is it goes into how, depending on the context, if it resembles something that we have grown up with or our cultural standards or norms, it's much easier for us to answer or have intuition about that. But if the topic is very mathematical or is based in logic only, then our reasoning doesn't kick in as fast. And that's interesting. If it's a cultural bias, reasoning very quickly. And I'm going to have some further picks in the future, but for this one in particular, Pia, I have a question for you. Are
Mhm.
you a fan of proof by contradiction?
A contradiction.
You
I'm
can
not
say I don't
sure.
know what that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Give
is
me an
this is the
example.
concept. Yeah, so proof by contradiction is this strategy to countering arguments where you show that there's a flaw in the argument that's being made by showing the outcome of that argument directly contradicts one of the original premises. Without going into a mathematical proof, it could be that someone just says, we should work on feature A because we need it for customer A, because they have some requirements A. But when you look into it and you ask questions about that, you find out that what the customer actually needs is the opposite of A. And you say, wait, this customer says, I don't want A. And then you bring this as evidence to why we shouldn't do this feature. They want this thing, and it directly contradicts this other thing. Well, for me, this is so obvious. I learned about proof by contradiction and I fell in love with it. It just seems so like such a natural thing to use in a conversation or an argument. But it only occurs to me recently that this is a learned behavior, or learned idea or concept. It's not something that we're born with. Understanding that things contradict each other is a logical paradigm that's natural, but not something that we have a basic tendency for. And what's really interesting to me is that it may actually be incompatible with anyone that doesn't have a logical or technical background. The concept of that we can have a discussion and we can lay out axiom or premises and come to a conclusion based off of that, and then show how our conclusion is flawed based off of new data. That isn't something that everyone actually is born with or fundamentally understands.
Yeah, I agree. I had to learn that one. And I learned it actually from a good friend who used to work in software engineering.
This seems like a long and interesting story. But for the maybe that's maybe another topic for another day. So the series is called "The Rest Is Science," and it has Michael Stevens of Vsauce fame, the influencer, and Hannah Fry, the PhD mathematician out of, I believe, England. They're really great. They're very technical, and they really dive into each of the topics. So I think it's very interesting, and it's definitely given me a new insight into when I engage with conversations with other people. If I'm trying to argue against them, I also need to make sure that we understand how disagreements work.
Yeah, Absolutely. I love it. Thank you. I'll definitely check it out.
Okay, so with that, I'll say thank you, Pia, so much for joining us this week.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks for all the listeners for tuning in, and I hope to see everyone back again next